colonists from Mexico and Spain entered New Mexico from 1598 until about 1885 along El Camino Real, which extended from Mexico City and the port city of Veracruz to Santa Fe and beyond, a distance of over 1,500 miles. It was a long journey and a hard one, with the most challenging stretch right here in Sierra County, New Mexico. And it wasn't until the 1860s that the harshest part of the trail, the so-called Journey of the Dead, was improved by the digging of a well and the establishment of a stopping place for travelers. This is the story of Sierra County pioneer Jack Martin and the well he dug that opened the way for settlement and development in this part of rural New Mexico. Jack Martin's well, as it came to be known, is still producing water today, still watering livestock in the virtual shadow of Spaceport America. The Jornada del Muerto, which is Spanish for Journey of the Dead or Journey of the Dead Man, was the name given to the 90-mile stretch of El Camino Real where travelers heading north left the Rio Grande close to the Point of Rocks and traveled to the tip of the Fra Cristobal mountain range to reconnect with the river. This shortened route was necessary in order to avoid the rough terrain of the river landscape. Although this detour allowed a more navigable route for the travelers' wagons and livestock, the many dangers of the area quickly made the travelers appreciate the area's name. Not only was there little water, fuel, or shelter for 90 miles, but also the raiding native tribes of the area could easily spot the clouds of dust kicked up by the livestock and wagons and plan their attacks from the relative safety of the tall grasslands near the Rio Grande. One area of the Jornada del Muerto, El Aleman, got its name through the unfortunate death of a German merchant named Bernardo Gruber, a trader at the Quaray Pueblo in northern New Mexico, who had been nicknamed El Aleman, Spanish for the German. Around 1666, Gruber made the fatal mistake of bragging about some magic spells he had done through writing a series of letter combinations and crosses on small pieces of paper. He said if an individual ate the small pieces of paper, they would escape all means of harm or death until Christmas Day. Gruber should have known better than to pretend to dabble in anything remotely superstitious or mystical at that particular time in history because of the Spanish Inquisition, whose agents investigated witchcraft for the church. Through an unfortunate series of events, word got out to the Inquisition agent in Santa Fe about the incident with the papelitos, or little papers, and the agent promptly arrested Gruber on charges of practicing witchcraft. Naively, Gruber thought he would be exonerated quickly, but 2 years passed while he waited in a small cell for his trial. At that time, Apaches had made the roads and travel unsafe, so Gruber couldn't be transported to Mexico City for a trial. As time loomed on, Gruber concocted a plan to escape with the help of his friends. Gruber attempted his planned escape through the treacherous Jornada del Muerto with the Spanish authorities right behind him. He either died or was killed on the trail, and his remains were found by accident by a group of men who erected a cross to mark his passing. The place would bear his name as La Cruz de Aleman, the German's cross, or simply El Aleman. History gives credit to Lieutenant John Jack Martin, born in New York, with digging the first successful well in the area known as El Aleman on the Jornada del Muerto. Jack Martin was living in California when he joined the Army. He arrived in New Mexico with Union troops to participate in campaigns against the Apaches. After being discharged from the Army, he married Esther Catherine Wadsworth in Mesilla. Following his wedding, the couple moved to Fort Selden, where Martin operated a rope ferry across the Rio Grande, and his wife managed the officers' mess. In 1867, Martin and Esther came to live on the Aleman, as it came to be known. After New Mexico gained territorial status in 1850, areas such as the Jornada del Muerto needed a more permanent source of water to assure safe and timely travel through that area to more populated areas, such as El Paso, Texas. Isolation was no longer an option for the rural areas. Martin began putting all his efforts into trying to dig a well on the Aleman. In 1868, frustrated by having dug a 164-foot deep well by hand but finding no water, he reportedly set off a round of gunpowder in the bottom of the well, and then he struck water. Martin's well proved survival in the Sierra County desert was possible, and it opened up the way for permanent ranching in the area. Martin developed the area known as the Jack Martin Well into a stage stop and headquarters for travelers traveling the Jornada del Muerto. The 1870 U.S. Census shows Jack Martin living on the Martin Ranch with his wife and their 3 children, ages 8 years, 3 years, and 5 months. He reported his occupation as keeping hotel, and there were 6 other adults ranging in age from 21 to 53 years also working on the ranch. The stage stop developed the attributes of a tiny oasis town in the desert. Lodging, horses, food, water, and even a holding cell for prisoners being transported to jails were features of the Jack Martin compound. Many of the buildings have been restored by the Kane family, which owns the property, and still show mementos of the past, including markings made by prisoners who were locked in the makeshift jail awaiting justice. Some of the original primitive construction can still be seen, as the Kane family preserved as much as possible the original design of the stage stop. The territorial legislature of New Mexico rewarded Martin for finding water by exempting him from all payments of rent on the Aleman. They also exempted him from taxes for 20 years because finding water in this area was considered an important feat. Another one of Martin's enterprises was securing the telegraph service via Mesilla, New Mexico. Jack Martin took the contract to furnish the poles ready for hauling the entire 400 miles at 50 cents apiece, thereby securing the telegraph line to Mesilla. Silver City Enterprises had offered to furnish the poles at $4 apiece, but Martin's bid came in $4,000 less than the next lowest bid. According to the Santa Fe Daily New Mexican's December 4th issue, back in 1875, quote, Jack Martin deserves especially well from the people of the Rio Abajo and the Mesilla Valley. We believe that they will stand by him to the end. We hope that something will give New Mexico 100 more such men as Jack Martin, and it is not too much to predict that the territory could be gridironed with railroads inside of 10 years. End quote. In 1875, Martin left his beloved Aleman and moved to Santa Fe, operating the Exchange Hotel until his death at the age of 48 in 1877. The Aleman Ranch and Stage Stop was purchased by a Kentucky syndicate in 1882. Martin was credited in an article in the 1885 Rio Grande Republican as being, quote, one of the most enterprising sons in the territory, and possessed good horse sense, believed where grass grew water must be near at hand, and acting on this belief, in spite of the sneers of the wiseacres, located a ranch and commenced digging a well at the halfway point between Fort Selden and Paraje. End quote. Today, Sierra County, New Mexico boasts 2 lakes, Elephant Butte and Caballo, and is known as the playground of New Mexico because of the availability of water here. But water is as scarce here as it ever was, and will always be a vital issue in a desert state. Jack Martin's well has never gone dry, and still produces good water today, just as it did when it was dug almost 150 years ago. Jack Martin's well helped make Sierra County grow. Later, the development of the railroads and the interstate system were all made possible by the fact that there was a place somewhere in the middle of the Jornada del Muerto where you could stop for water and for rest. Later on, the Jack Martin Ranch not only was used as a ranch, but also was the site of Civilian Conservation Corps operations and other attempts to improve rural Sierra County. But none of that would have been possible without the fact that Jack Martin dug the first well back in 1868.